Alright, I'm gonna continue on in my series of videos on Edmund Husserl's Cartesian Meditations. I have this on my Kindle iPad app, which is what I'm using this to film, so that's why I checked it out from the library in order to read passages. I have videos on Meditations 1 and 2, and I'm going to do the very short. It's not very short, but it's pretty short compared to the first two. The third meditation has to do with constitution, and the whole thing here is, I guess I'm going to try and get towards what the whole overriding thing is here. Hopefully I can do that. Yeah, this is pretty short. It's about like that much. That's the third one. So, but it does have a lot of. It's not as easy for me to talk about. It has a lot more stuff packed into it, I would say, than the first and second ones. And as we progress on here, it's going to get even more so, because the fourth and fifth ones are even more loaded, and it's going to take even longer to unpack everything. But in section 23, he talks about a more pregnant concept of constitution under the reason and the words reason and unreason, and the whole thing is constitution. Is also referred to as Genesis, where we have static phenomenology, which static phenomenology is stuff like where we talk about noesis, noma, hyle, and intentionality entirely, where genetic phenomenology is mostly about talking about the origin of all that stuff, the origin of the stuff that is given to us, where it's also called constitution. Husserl uses the word constitution in this translation anyway. I think this translation is by Cairns. Yeah. Yep, translated by Dorian Cairns. And what constitution is we're talking again about the phenomenological origin of what is given, and the constitution of any intentional object, or the constitution of where it comes from. Trying to investigate things genetically as to where they have come from, and doing genetic phenomenology has to do with doing things, apart from causal and empirical things, and doing things and studying things that are a priori as to where things have come from, and not givenness but pre-givenness, and that's what really is going on here. And constitution is a pregnant concept because it has a lot of stuff packed into it. As you will read in this meditation, there's a lot of stuff packed into it. So the epoche, or the reduction, where we go from the natural attitude of science to just talking about things and having a genuine science through phenomenology, and talking about things as they are given to us rather than whether they are mind dependent or mind independent. And the epoche, he says, is pure meaning as meant from the cogito, or the thought. And he talks about being and non-being, reason and unreason, and existing and non-existing, and truth and falsity, and meaning or intending, the phenomenological origin of things. I was talking about whether something, because through looking at things through this new phenomenological lens, we can do also the genetic or constitutive phenomenology by talking about what it is. And I guess one thing I do want to say is that you can read this, however, you must kind of have an idea of what his phenomenology is, because if you don't, you will see him you will read him talking about things subjectively, and also see him at the same time talking about things objectively, and you will be confused as hell. So, one advice that I would like to give is that know what the whole overriding the whole overriding thought of phenomenology is before you go into this work. So I guess to have being or non-being, reason or unreason, or truth and falsity, is to study things as to their constitution, and as to study things as they are meant, or as they are intending. And this kind of also comes down to the concept of evidence, where it's like the genuine thought of judging correctly, or thinking correctly, or having agreement with what is given to you. And basically everything that is given to us has one thing or the other intended, or intends one thing or the other. Now, his talk about reason has to do with the all-embracing, essentially necessary, structured form belonging to all transcendental subjectivity. So that's the whole thing. Now, that's why we're getting down to things, kind of transitioning towards pre-givenness rather than givenness, and talking about things a priori, things as to how they are, through studying things that are a priori rather than a posteriori. Now, there are possibilities of making evidence, of verification. Now, he uses the word verification, which is normally used by the logical positivists of the analytic tradition. So, he means a similar thing by this, like meaning or verification as pretty much reducing to the term evidence, or something being made evident, which is how that kind of does relate to somebody like Schlick's word confirmation. And the whole 23rd section is kind of unpacking the word constitution as to how we are coming down to things, as to how things are being or non-being, existing or not existing, being true or false, or having reason or being reason or unreason. And that's how we're kind of getting down to this thing, and how reason is the all-embracing, essentially necessary structural form of belonging to all transcendental subjectivity. So that's how it all belongs to everything. We are studying things more constitutively and genetically rather than statically. Now, the word static and genetic is like from he doesn't really use those words, but that's kind of what he's moving towards. And in the ideas, he's doing things more statically. Well, in the crisis of the European sciences, he's doing things more genetically or constitutively. So the 24th section has to do with evidence as its self-givenness and the modifications of it. Evidence denotes it denotes a universal primal phenomenon of intentional life. So the self-giving of a state of affairs, or self-appearing of a state of affairs, or evidence as itself there. That's kind of starting to get a little kind of Heideggerian here. Where I guess evidence in a way is objective and is in a way subjective, because it's agreeing with what you have, or it's agreeing with what has been given to you, where it is at one sense neither subjective nor objective, and is at the same time both. So, the fundamental fruit of all, or the fundamental trait of all intentional life, that consciousness is itself already characterized as evidence, as his essential tendency to givings into its object, as I can't read my damn handwriting. Thus, it points to an essential fundamental trait of all intentional life, and a consciousness without exception either is itself already characterized as evidence, or it else has an essential tendency towards conversion into givings of its object originality, or accordingly towards syntheses of verification, which belong essentially to the domain of the I can. So, what we're starting to get to here is as to how evidence being gotten of a certain thing that is given to you, pretty much we can lead to possibly having potentialities of having more evidence. So, the fundamental trait of all intentional life is that as we can gain evidence from things that are given to us, we have the possibility of gaining more. And he's going to kind of move towards this characteristic of all phenomenological intentional life, is that we can always get towards more, given that we have one or a couple different instantiations of evidence now. So, section 25, and I'm sorry I'm kind of getting off track here because my handwriting on this thing is terrible. Now he uses the word I can, is that actuality towards quasi-actuality is what's going to be given in the next one here, is that we have actuality where I gain a certain evidence, quasi-actuality, that I have the possibility of doing so next. Section 25, imaginableness. On this side, a new universal concept of possibility arises, which, as mere imaginableness and a fantasying as if something were, repeats in modified form all the modes of being, starting with simple certainty of being. So, in section 25, we have this imaginableness, kind of talking again about this I can, about how we can have the possibility of moving towards other evidences, given one or some that we do already have. So he's kind of, this is a big thing in philosophy, we have this, and this kind of does come from Aristotle, this actuality, potentiality, distinction. However, he's kind of developing it more for his own purposes. Section 26, the phenomenological origin of principles, or fundamental concepts of logic. Thus, if you read Husserl's Experience and Judgment, you will be given basically a phenomenological, metaphysical, and logical structure of how the world is, or basically a kind of a logic of the way that we experience things. And I do have a video about that. Actuality is the correlate of evident verification. So the phenomenological origin of principles or concept of logic is indicated by what is given to us, the evidences that are through empirical things or a posteriori things can lead to possibly having evidences of how we get that givenness, of knowing things about pre-givenness as to how we get givenness. So studying observation through static phenomenology can lead us to knowing things more about how they come, about studying things through genetic phenomenology also. Conscious life conforms to the laws of logic. So the way we experience things conforms to the laws of logic, and that's another thing that kind of corresponds to his experience and judgment, which I wish I owned, but I wish I owned it. All things actually existing by evidence has sense for us, or Zen, or meaning. Frege's sense and reference distinction. Sense or Zen can kind of refer to meaning, and it's kind of varies depending on who you're talking about. So, laws of logic, the universal laws of logic, are a part of the way we experience things, and the way we experience things, we do so through those laws, and those laws kind of almost I don't want to use the wrong words. So I guess I'm not doing very good because this is not the easiest one for me. So I think if you know a better way of explaining something, please tell me, because this is not the easiest one for me to discuss. This is not the easiest meditation for me to do. 1, 2, 4, and 5 are pretty fine for me. This one isn't. So number 27. Or first of all, I should point out how evidence leads to verification. Verification is more realization and more, grounding of the evidence, or also gaining more evidence around certain evidence. Section 27. The sense of an existing object comes from potential evidence of something. So, it's how there's actuality and then there's quasi-actuality, in that the evidence of something can be actual, given that we do something to get there. So, to have something given to you again means that we can have more things given to you, and more evidences of different things, and also how givenness and evidence through givenness can lead to having more genetic discoveries in pre-givenness, and have evidences in pre-givenness apart from observation and causality and empirical laws. And I will get to as to how this all comes together once I finish these section by section. The ideal immanence, this complex of possible syntheses. This ideal immanence, in that to be sure, like the identity of any meant object as meant, neither the identity nor the truly existing object nor the identity constituted in the adequation of the meant as such, and the truly existent is a really intrinsic moment of the transient conscious process of evidence and verification. But we have here an ideal immanence, which refers us to further complexes of possible syntheses, as complexes that play an essential role in this connection. So it's this ideal immanence, which kind of, in a way, connects everything together, so that we can kind of go from one instance of evidence and move towards others, and that's how the laws of logic, in a way, impinge themselves on us. In that whenever we experience something, or something is given to us in our conscious life, the laws of nature and logic apply entirely. Section 28. Evidences refer us to infinites or multiplicities of evidences possible. Object gives themselves as with one-sidedness. So, also along with these with the facts he's been giving, if we only get like a few different instances of evidence, we are only experiencing something in one way. In Husserl's experience and judgment, he very much discusses how when we experience something, let's say we experience the glass, we're only experiencing it in a certain way, and we are experiencing it in a one-sided fashion, in that there are many other planes, or there are many other ways in which this is a part of the universe, many other ways in which it is a part of other things. So when we experience something, just because we see it in one certain way doesn't mean it doesn't exist in other ways. So that's the whole, what is meant by the one-sidedness, is that when we experience something, according to Husserl, it is part of this ideal immanence, in that there are many other ways that it could, and very well does, exist. So we are uncovering the horizon of experience. So if I can get to here. The reference to harmonious infinities to further possible experience, starting from each world experience, where actually existing object can have sense only as a unity meant and meanable in the nexus of consciousness, and a unity that would be given as itself and a perfect experiential evidence, manifestly signifies that an actual object belonging to a world, or all the more so a world itself, is an infinite idea related to infinities of harmoniously combinable experiences, an idea that is the correlate of the idea of a perfect experiential evidence, a complete synthesis of possible experiences. So, hopefully I'm kind of getting through and not, messing this whole thing up, that having one or a few instances of evidence means that we can have evidences about a ton of other things, and learn many more things about this ideal eminence through these multiplicities of or infinities of possible experiences. And the last one of this whole thing, in section 29, he's talking about material and formal ontological regions as indexes pointing to transcendental systems of evidence. Transcendental systems of evidence, where the ego's explication of conscious life occurs, existing objectivity and constitution. So, hopefully, if I got everything, hopefully this whole thing does kind of make sense if you're still here with me. So, to kind of go have a big overview, he's talking about a phenomenological ecology in that we explicate our conscious life and we gain evidences after the epoche, and that we learn more about um, this infinity of possible experiences. Now, he's going to go on. He's going to talk about things like intersubjectivity and experiencing of the other, and it's pretty neat how the whole thing is going to work. Now, I apologize if you didn't get the point, or if you think I messed it up, or messed up by like stuttering or something, or anything. Please comment below and tell me, because I'd love to hear from you. Or if you have a question as to how this whole thing relates to the whole concept of the book, definitely comment below. And as I finish the next two, I'm going to do a video which is kind of, not really reading things in the book, but kind of talking about as to how the whole thing in each of the 5 meditations fits together in whole one argument or stance. So, thank you.